Are the snipers OP in Call of Duty Mobile? Hello you, what's his face, it's Tygon here, and today I'm going to be discussing that matter. So, there are three main sources or topic of discussion when talking about snipers, or at least the viability of them. Basically, currently, are they OP? Are they completely fine? Or do they need a buff? And in my opinion, currently, I'm just going to go out and say it, I think they need a buff in its current state. So let's get into that. So I'm just going to put everything at the forefront of why I think it needs a buff, and then we're going to get into the other arguments. So first off, I would say they need a buff in terms of damage and consistency. Right now, I like where just about all the snipers are in terms of just how they feel. The only other pet peeves I have, which are two, I'm going to get into them later, but those are mainly mechanical. So right now, the only thing the snipers need is a buff and damage because they are so very inconsistent. I could get a chest shot, a neck shot, even sometimes a headshot with the locus, which technically is supposed to be the strongest and most reliable sniper. Even though the locus has quote-unquote 95 damage or whatever, it doesn't show that at all. And the Arctic 50, out of all of them, in fact, I feel like that's kind of the best damage wise, because even though you could get a hit marker, I found myself getting way less hit markers, but that's to each their own in terms of how high they shoot. Anyway, let's get back into it. So my main thing is, one, the snipers need a buff and damage. They are very unreliable and inconsistent, especially if you're playing a ranked match and you go ahead and you get that hit marker. It's going to be very annoying. So that's why I do consider that particular part of the sniper to need a buff. The next thing is the fact that quick scoping is almost impossible. Like, you can quick scope, but if you scope in and shoot too fast, I'm not saying scoping in and then shooting without seeing the person, but if you scope in and shoot too fast, the game literally just will not register the shot, which kind of pisses me off. And I mean, the only way it's possible to do is scope plus shoot, so you have to first scope in and then shoot, and that's the way I play. I'm pretty sure they're not going to fix this. Like, it's not a main priority because there's just not that many people play the way I play, but that is one of the things that I think needs to be fixed, and a reason why the snipers are currently kind of underpowered and need a buff. The last thing is essentially the movement. I really hated that they nerfed the movement, but I can deal with it. For example, if you guys don't know, once you take a shot, you have to do the entire animation of reloading, and it slows you down, so you cannot slide after, and you cannot move really after you take a shot. It slows you down a little bit, and so you have to deal with that in complete animation before you go back into what you were doing. And if you're in a very intense gunfight, this can mess you up in terms of just the fact that you could potentially, in terms of just the fact that you kind of freeze up and you're almost a standing still target, which is kind of messed up. Because yeah, I understand the devs wanted the snipers to be more stationary, but hey, what if you want to play aggressive? And if you have the skills necessary to play aggressive with a sniper, then you shouldn't be penalized just because the game wants to slow you down. In very high ranked gameplay, when your character slows down, that's almost like marking your death warrant. So for you to be a sniper and you want to be aggressive and you get into a certain situation, that is very bad. Now, as you know, you could always play differently to compensate for that, so that's why I don't necessarily put that at the top of my list. But as I said, number one, damage needs a fix, and number two, the scopes, they need to fix that. But in terms of that, I feel like if they fix that, the snipers would be way better, and I would actually be content with them. Now let's go into the arguments of why people believe that snipers are OP, because they're OP and they need a buff at the same time. So I've seen this argument a lot on Reddit, and even in my channel or in my videos, people basically saying that the snipers are too OP. And the reason why, which in my opinion, yes, they are in certain situations. When you're first starting off, or even relatively early, like from veteran all the way to Pro 1 or Pro 3, snipers are going to be insanely hard to deal with. And that's because of the type of system that Call of Duty has, or Call of Duty Mobile has, and that is the scope and release, or the scope and shoot. The ADS button is what I call it, when you aim down sights and you're automatically able to shoot. Now, this made it way easier for people with ARs to go ahead and shoot and get kills, but the effect it had on snipers were tenfold, because that hard skill of being able to time your shots correctly scoping in and then shooting, or even especially on mobile having to play claw, that's all out the window. You can basically just go hold, scope, and then shoot. And when you're first starting off, all the way from veteran to even pro, even like pro 3, I would say, in that situation, if you have someone that's decent with a sniper, or you just decent with aim, you could potentially be dominating the scene compared to those who are not as good with their aim with ARs. So in that sense, I could definitely see that snipers are OP. And on top of that, if someone's rocking the ACOG scope and camping, that definitely does add on to the effect of being able to snipe better and be better off. So in lower levels, I do feel that sniping is OP. That can never really change because that's just the mechanic, and I do very much doubt that Call of Duty Mobile would take out the mechanic, because it does need to be a place for people that are newbies to the game. And there's nothing wrong with using the scope and shoot, the ADS button. I was using it, and the only reason why I switched is because the scope plus shoot allows you to snipe just that much faster. But yeah, they're not going to take that button out because it's a gateway to people who are new to mobile games. And so if they have that little gateway right there, more people are going to be likely to play the game. And I completely agree with that. I mean, mobile gaming is hard to get into, so they need to get as many people into that game as possible. So implementing that system was a no-brainer. But in higher levels, sniping is a very, very hard thing to do, because in this game there is sliding and jumping, and the movement is really, really crazy. I mean, it's been toned down since early season 2 when they added fatigue, but unless you have a higher sensitivity, it's going to be very hard to go ahead and snap onto those targets. That's just how it is. Now, the weird thing about Call of Duty Mobile is it has sliding. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. I actually like that aspect. But when trying to deal with it with sniping and people just jumping up and sliding, then doing all these crazy things, it's gonna be way harder because of the amount of times you can scope in and just the overall scope and speed of the gun. I'm gonna put on screen a clip of someone in Black Ops 4 just going crazy with a sniper, and that basically shows you guys how fast snipers are in the console games. So to come to mobile and have the snipers this slow, especially with advanced movement, is kind of tough to deal with. Now, all in all, I can deal with it. It's not too much of a problem, but I do wish the scope and speed was a bit faster. Currently, I'm kind of okay with the speed of the DLQV3. I think the locus itself needs a buff because currently, in my opinion, it's the worst sniper. It's very inconsistent and it can't shoot as fast as the Arctic, point blank. Snipers are supposed to be overpowered. What? Tygon, did you just say that? Yes, I did. I mean, everyone knows this, right? The allure of snipers is a one-shot kill. The thing that drives people away from it is the learning curve and the skill needed to wield it. So that is the problem with COD Mobile, because as you know, what they implemented, the ADS button, it's a good button and it's great for grabbing people into mobile. However, it makes sniping very easy and takes away a bit of that skill. My little brother can literally pick up Call of Duty Mobile and snipe relatively well at his level in Call of Duty Mobile with the current system of just scoping in and then release firing to go ahead and shoot. So this is a very interesting problem. Though the devs could either buff the snipers to make them a bit more usable and ranked for higher ranked and pro players, or they could take away the ADS button. And if they take away the ADS button, they could lose a big chunk of their player base. So as it stands, they're kind of at a stalemate, and that's why sniping in Call of Duty Mobile, one of the reasons it's going to be always weird of whether or not the sniper should be OP, because in any game, frankly, the snipers should be overpowered. It just needs to take skill. There's supposed to be a skill gap. That's why you use it. Just like in Fortnite, the building is overpowered. You can literally stop someone with a gun. But what allows it to be overpowered is the skill gap. But there it is, guys. Let me know in the comments if you do have any solutions to this particular problem. How will Call of Duty Mobile fix this, or will they just leave it? At the very least though, I hope they do increase the damage of the snipers. I'm fine with them not increasing the fire rate or the scope and speed, but at the very least they need to increase the damage and make them consistent.